Shalom Greek class. Here we are for homework prep for Mounce's workbook. This is the 4th edition, exercise number 7. And here we go. I've got the pictures taken from the workbook. This is a Zondervan Basics of Biblical Greek workbook by Bill Mounce, 4th edition. And we're going to go through chapter 7, genitive and dative. So with Chapter 6 and 7 cover the basic complete paradigm, the full paradigm of the definite article and the noun in the first and second declensions. There are 3 declensions in Greek. We're going to punt on that third declension. Right now it's just first and second declension. The general rule to remember is that first declension nouns, I'm just going to write up here, first declension are generally going to be feminine, and they end in an eta. The stems end in an eta or an alpha. Second declension, generally, are going to be masculine and neuter. And those stems end in an omicron. So that's kind of what we're attending to is the stems of nouns. Do they end in an eta or an alpha? If so, they're going to be follow the first declension. If they end in an omicron, they're going to be masculine or neuter in gender, and they're going to be second declension. So that is the basic thing we're learning. And again, there is a third declension, but we're going to learn that down the road. Okay, so parsing, our first word here is agape. Agape. Now, what we need to notice is a tiny little detail here. Tiny little detail is this little guy right there. If I can zoom in maybe a little more. That tiny little letter, that is what we call a iota subscript. And that is only used in this scenario for the feminine, well, if it's in an eta. So we can see it within, the iota can subscript under an omega or under an eta and even under an alpha. But right now we're interested in it under an eta. And what we'll see if you look at your chart in your textbook, you'll see this is going to be dative, singular, and feminine. So this is a second. So in other words, this is a second declension. Second declension now, or sorry, first declension. First declension noun. Agape. The lexical form then, I'll let you figure it out, but guess what? It's going to sound a lot like the inflected form here. And you want to write that out. You want to go to your lexicon, that is at the end of your Mounce textbook, or at the vocab from the end of the chapter, and you'll be able to see what the lexical form is there. And then make sure, I'm not going to write the accent here. You want to write the accent on this. And then you'd see, oh, this means love, agape, but the inflected meaning, remember, our inflected meaning refers back to the inflected form. That is all the form that we see here at the beginning. What does that mean? It's not referring to what does the lexical form mean, right? So I'm going to put a red mark. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the inflected meaning. So that's all the way back to the left column. And the inflected meaning here then, if you remember, our dative is to, generally, to for. To or for love. That would be fine. You could just say to or for love. Don't mistaken that with to love like a verb, like what we call the infinitive is something, the commandment is to love God. That's different. To love God as the commandment. That's the verb in what we call the infinitive, to love, to do something, to sing, to dance. Those are infinitives. Here, this to is what we call our indirect object. And so our dative marks our indirect object. Okay, so that's it for parsing. Now we're going to look at this as a great exercise. Write out the forms of the article. I'm tempted not to do this, but I want you to do it by yourself first. And so, but you want to do this by memory. You want to do this by memory. I will give you, to me, like learning this, I had to write this a gazillion times over and over and over again. In college, I had a job. I delivered pizzas, and I had times where I was waiting for the next orders to come in. I grabbed like scraps of paper sitting there in the back room of the pizza parlor, and I would just write out like Greek paradigms, right? And then I'd throw it away. And I'd go, well, before I threw it away, I would check. I'd always check my answers, and then I'd mark the ones I got right or wrong. So there are 12 items in the singular. See, these are all singular, and 12 items in the plural. And you want to get all these down. You want to know these like the back of your hand. It's one of the biggest favors you'll do for your future Greek reader self. Do yourself a favor. Drill on these, drill on these, drill on these. Know them just so well. And this is what I call digging ditches in your brain. You got to dig the ditch in your brain. Nobody can dig these ditches for you. You can't hire it out. You have to actually dig the ditches. And what I mean is you got to do the hard work of slugging through, write out the best you can, the answers, and then take a red marker and come back through and mark the ones you got wrong. And then see it visually, compare it and say, okay, I see what I got wrong. You've got to do that. In our live class, we'll spend some time on that, but I'm not going to write them out here for you. Okay, we're going to go to our warm-up. Remember, the warm-ups sometimes are complete sentences, but often are just short phrases. So here we have angelos kuriou. Angelos kuriou. Angelos. Well, if we remember, Omicron sigma, it's a second declension, right? It's masculine. And it is nominative singular. So what does that all mean? That means it's the subject. It's in the subjective case. And there's no definite article, ha angelos. So we could just say a messenger. Or if you want, you could say an angel. Okay, so what about the next word here? What about kuriou? Well, if you do your vocab, this is why vocab's so important. You would say, the lexical form there is kurios with it would look just like angelos ends, right? With the Omicron sigma. Kurios is our nominative. So what's kuriou? What's this oo ending? Well, you look that up in our chart for chapter 7, and you learn that is our genitive. So the one up here, this is our lexical. That's our dictionary entry form. Kuriou is, we're going to look up and we're going to see it's genitive singular. It's genitive singular. And our genitive is of. We translate that as of. Kuriou, if kurios is Lord or master, we can say of a Lord. So we could say a messenger of a Lord. You could translate angelos kuriou that way. However, we know that in context, we know that this is a specific noun. It's a specific title. And so it would be totally fine if you just wanted to say angel of the Lord. Or you could say messenger of the Lord. So even though there's no definite article here, it doesn't mean that we can't supply it when context helps us in English understand that it's appropriate in English, even though it's not in the Greek. That's totally fine. Okay, so there's our warm-up. Now let's look, last but not least, we're going to look at our translation for chapter 7, the first one. Remember, I'm just, for homework warm-up, homework prep, I'm just doing the first of each of the parsing, warm-up, and translation. Here we go. Epen autois ha Yeshus. Now I say Yeshus, but you can just say Jesus if you like. Oops, I meant to erase. So the definite article here tells us this is, you're going to say Jesus. You could say Yeshua if you want. The sigma, the reason we have Jesus or Jesus with the S is because that's the nominative case. It's not part of the name. This sigma, remember, is not part of the name. It is part of the Greek language. That any masculine, see, we have the ha here. Masculine, nominative, singular names generally have the sigma at the end. Epenautois, if we have done our homework, we know that this is a verb that we're to learn. Mounce often glosses, just like he does here, elale, meaning he, she, it was speaking. But here, epen, he doesn't, because we're supposed to remember this. And what it is, I'll just write the gloss, is he, she, it, said. So that's what apen is. He, she, it, said. And then we have autois, ho Jesus. So we know that this is in the nominative singular. And so that means it's the subject. If we didn't have the definite article, we might pause and we might not know. But because we have the ha here, that's the definite article. That seals the deal that this is the nominative singular. That is the subject of the sentence. So therefore, when I go back to my verb, apen, I can eliminate she and it. And I clarify that it's he said. He said. So now I'm going to say who said? Jesus said. It could be spoke. Probably spoke will be better in English because we have our last little guy we got to zoom in on here, which is this word, autois. Autois. And if we look at our chart, we see this omicron, iota, sigma with the circumflex is the dative plural. And this is to the pronoun they or he, which is them. So in the plural form is them. So Jesus said to them. Now, in English, Jesus said to them doesn't sound so great, so you can change said to spoke, if you like. Jesus spoke to them. Jesus talked to them, something like that. Apen, just that means speech. So there you go. Okay, so this is our Basics of Biblical Greek Workbook, Chapter 7, just doing some homework prep on the 3 sections. I know I kind of ripped through this pretty quickly. We will take time during the live class to address any questions you have, but I hope this is a good jump start for you. All right, shalom.